Okay, so this is a Redefining Energy Special live from Brussels, Eurelectric's Power Summit 2022, hashtag Game Changers. I'm Laurent Segalen, this is my co-host from the Redefining Energy podcast, Gerard, Reid, and we have Jorgo, I can't pronounce your family name.
Chatzimarkakis en français. Chatzimarkakis.
And so you are the CEO, Secretary General of Hydrogen Europe.
Correct.
Okay, so you know everything about hydrogen.
I need to know everything about hydrogen, but the hunger on knowledge about hydrogen never stops.
Excellent. So, Gerard, what's your first question?
Well, actually, I'd love to just start with, when I was in university, I read a book on the hydrogen economy, right? That was back in the 70s. And here we are sort of 50 years later, and it only feels it's kicking off now. And I suppose I'd love to hear why you think it's taken so long.
The answer is very simple, because fossil energy was too cheap. If you go back to the origins of the idea to use hydrogen is even much, much earlier than 50 years ago. But the big upscale of hydrogen was stopped by the cheap availability of, especially of oil, and later on of gas. So once you have something, and it doesn't harm, it harmed, but nobody wanted to know it, you use the cheaper version. And then we had the Paris Agreement, then we had the pandemic, now we have the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. These are elements that bring the focus on something different. And so you understand, okay, it's time to set the course into another direction. So after electrification has been a boom, I'm not talking about a hype, because hype is a different thing than a boom. It's now the time where we understand we have even to accelerate more. We have to complement the switch to green electrons by the switch to green molecules.
Can I sort of give you my view on it? My view on it is that, okay, what we have to do is decarbonize as quickly as possible. And if you really prioritize what needs to happen, the first thing we need to do is electrify as much as we can of the energy system.
Why? Can I ask you why? Because you need the infrastructure to do that, and it's partly there, but it's partly not there. Whereas for molecules, you have an infrastructure, an existing, strong infrastructure. So my question is why?
Well, so you already do have an infrastructure in place. The infrastructure in place is called an electrical grid, right? And you've got power stations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's number one. But number two, for me, it just comes down to economics, right? And economics, you think in the history of any form of transition in energy system, the lowest cost wins, right? So it was coal, it was oil, it was gas. And I look at this and I say, well, the lowest cost going forward is renewables, right? And the easiest thing to do with that renewables is to directly use it as much as you can. So that should be your first priority. Now, of course, you might say, well, there's definitely a need for molecules, no doubt about that.
No, I don't question this one. This is a photovoltaic panel, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are in Brussels. This gives me yields 100 kilowatt hours here. If I go to Greece, I know Greece quite well, I might get 220. If I go even more south, Saudi Arabia, I'm getting 300. So this panel gives me 300 there and only 100 here. So the efficiency question is relevant, but please, system efficiency. And now I need to calculate, is it cheaper to transport the molecule that I get with this? So I deduct the transmission loss, I deduct the transport, and then we talk. It doesn't make sense to just dismiss this existing infrastructure. We need to see it. And yes, it's true that we need to repurpose, retrofit for pure hydrogen. It's approximately 20 to 25% of the new build. In electricity, we need to build new from scratch, permitting. Where is it? Time is money. I'm very sorry. And with these existing gas grids that we can repurpose for cheap money, a quarter of it, and give that new life, no stranded assets, you use it for another 100, 150 years, this is cheaper. No permitting needed. It's there. And we have a dense system all over Europe, and most of the European countries cooperate. They have interconnectors. France, after the elections here now, might change the view. So far, France was a little bit an island, but that's it. All the others are cooperating.
But what you have to do is you have to create the hydrogen, right? So
Yes.
some, in some form or
okay, so
other.
let me
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you are at Hydrogen Europe. How would you qualify, what is Hydrogen Europe? What does it do? You arrive in the morning, you leave in the evening, what's your deliverable? What do you do?
Our deliverable is to make Europe the hub for hydrogen technologies from different sectors in order to propel the decarbonization globally. So Europe as destination number one for the production of these technologies, not for the production of hydrogen, because we can be much more efficient in other geographies, and for the use of hydrogen in order to be and a part of this decarbonization and a role model for others. So we propel global decarbonization, and it's different sectors. It's the techno providers who produce the technology to make hydrogen, but also to transport hydrogen and then to use it in industry, in heating, in transport, and in the energy system.
Okay, so I have here an excellent report from Hydrogen Europe called the Hydrogen Roadmap Europe Study dating 26th of June 2019. So that's 3 years. I guess you know the author, it's Jorgo, Chatzimarkakis, so it's you. And I read you, page 14, excellent, and you write, and it's here, 2/3 of the growth of hydrogen in an ambitious, I don't know really what that means, but in an ambitious roadmap scenario. In fact, 2/3 are transportation. So the new use of hydrogen is going to be transportation and heating and power for buildings. So I'm not even talking about high-grade heat like steel or anything. So it's really, so that's your roadmap is, okay, 2/3 of the growth are transportation. It's probably cars. You probably have a Toyota Mirai, but I think you're more of an exception than anything else. I haven't seen a lot of hydrogen cars, so maybe you're going to talk about hydrogen trucks. And residential, because written here, residential heating. And of course, I heard bad people saying, oh, why use hydrogen where heat pumps are 6 times more energy efficient? But I'm sure you have an answer to that.
I have an answer. So
Good.
first of all, thanks for this study. This is, you are focusing on one special part. On
Yeah,
our,
2/3.
on-
2/3.
No,
So
whoa. We are absolutely aware, we were aware at that time, and we are aware today that the biggest uptake of hydrogen will, of course, not be in cars. When I entered Hydrogen Europe in 2016, or we created that, the existing bunch of people was concentrating very much on hydrogen in a passenger car. I said, are you stupid? Sorry, stop it, stop. Outside there, you don't sell this. And I started to shift the main focus on the industries. Steel, I was born in Duisburg, so my dad and my grandpa, they both worked in the steel industry, so I know exactly this is the first low-hanging fruit. Even more so refineries, because they use hydrogen. The biggest user of hydrogen in the world is the fertilizer industry, and chemical industry. So this is where we went to, and this is where you now see the first big customers who really request hydrogen, need hydrogen, and this is, I say it again, the low-hanging fruit. However, if you take the figures in Repower EU, there are clear figures now. There's a strategy.
I know. Oh my God.
But it gives you a clear idea. We need to produce 20 million tons of renewable hydrogen until 2030, let alone the problems you have with the electrolyzer capacity, because you need an electrolyzer capacity. We have at the moment globally 3 gigawatt. You would need for 20 million tons around 300 giga. So you understand we have the challenge to ramp up the electrolyzer capacity by a factor of 100. And then we need the renewables. So we need these renewables also in parallel. Otherwise, you cannot yield 20 million tons. Out of which there are clear targets for these renewables, for these renewably produced hydrogen for the transport sector. It's 5% of all fuels in 2030 should be renewable fuels of non-biological origin. So it's hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives. That's around 6 million tons. And there is another target for industry, 75% of all industrial hydrogen used, which is today gray, needs to be green, 75%. So that's
green or blue?
No, blue. Repower EU talks about green. And at the moment, blue, hydrogen doesn't sell. It's too expensive. So green hydrogen in March this year it became cheaper, much cheaper than blue. So nobody talks about blue at the moment.
Okay, so it's a fuel. It's a fuel.
No.
No. When you put it in trucks, it's a fuel. I know. Sorry, no. When you put hydrogen in a truck, it's a fuel. When you use hydrogen as a chemical feedstock, it's a chemical feedstock. Let's talk about the fuel.
Okay. Hydrogen is three things. Hydrogen is the
Yeah, I know. Hydrogen, the Swiss Army knife. I know.
No.
Let me ask my question. Then you can not answer it.
No. I will answer it. Fuel, chemical feedstock, and energy vector, because it can store
energy vector. Wonderful. Okay. So, the fuel. And you agree with me, the law of thermodynamics, that you need 50 kilowatt-hour to produce a kilo of hydrogen through an electrolyzer? Ish, of course. You'll tell me certain they do 45, but let's say 50 for the sake of my calculation. Good. So, this morning I checked. Gas, 100 euro per megawatt hour on TTF. My calendar 23 on EX is 226 euro per megawatt hour. Coal, 290 US dollar per ton. The Brent is at 121 US dollar per barrel. The cost of diesel is about 2 euro per liter. What's the cost of hydrogen today?
Depends where you go and for what you use it. 3 weeks ago, when I went to the fueling station here in Brussels to charge my hydrogen car, per kilo I needed to pay €9.50, 1 kilo, 100 kilometers. Now it's 15. So there is a change, of course. Now, there is no market for hydrogen at the moment. Hydrogen as a commodity does not exist. That is why any price that I give you would only be the fairest price is the price for the chemical feedstock for the, for what is BASF using. The other prices are not really market prices. We need to create the market. That is the job of the hydrogen package that was presented by the Commission back in December. It gives clear guidance on how to develop the market. By the way, the Commission foresees the market start in 2030 only. And this is the challenge now, to use the time we have until then to really scale up. And then, as of 2030, to have a complex additionality rules, all the rules that you will then imply, they come with the market.
Can I go back to, come back to economics, right? So what you said in terms of refueling here, well, I look at my electric car, and I live in Germany, very expensive power, and I refueled my car the other day, and my 100 kilometers will cost me like €3, right? And I say that it's economics. The reason electricity, using direct electricity, is cheaper is because to create your hydrogen, you have to take that electricity and then create hydrogen out of, store it, and then distribute it. And that's the issue they have in transport, right?
I have another issue. When I fuel my car in Germany, hydrogen car, there's a typical Tesla guy coming. Is that a hydrogen car? Yeah. Can I touch it? Yeah, touch it. Can I sit inside? Sit inside. After 5 minutes, say, hey chap, I'm in a hurry. Can I go? You're done? I'm done. 5 minutes? 5 minutes, 600 kilometers. Thank you very much. You say, I'm only 20 minutes. It's, oh shit, now another Tesla came. Oh, it's another half hour. Say, it's not my problem. Bye-bye.
Sorry. I'm stuck in the 20th century. That's a 20th century view of things, because you have to be willing to change the way you look at things. And I will describe the way I charge my car. I basically plug it in at night and don't think about it.
Yes, but what about all these guys out there who don't have a house like you and don't have a plug?
I go into a supercharger, I did in Hamburg the other day.
Time
it takes
is
15
money.
minutes and I had a coffee. Simple.
Yeah, you have your coffee. Other people have to work that time. So the point is, we rather drive less. We rather use less cars. That's the best recipe. However, if you just come with these numbers and don't, calculate the time loss, and it's not last century, it was last week. So that is something we need to do. We need to become system efficient oriented, which includes time, rare earths. Can I ask you something?
Ask me something. Ask me anyone you want, and then I will talk about iridium. Because the iridium problem is as big as the rare earth problem.
We can talk about iridium. How much rare earths and critical raw materials you need for the BEF And how much for FCV?
For the battery, zero. Look, I asked
Infrastructure. So
I asked the chief scientist of CATL and said, this bullshit, there's no rare earth. There's no rare earth.
Lithium is not a rare earth.
No, it's in the magnet. It's in the magnet.
You put a fuel cell in your car and you need platinum straight away, right? I mean, that's a rare earth as well.
Can we talk seriously here? Can we talk seriously? Seriously means that if you compare the metals and the rare earths and look at the copper price at the moment, you just compare, and that's what we did. We need critical raw material. We need PGM, platinum group metals, of course, and I come for a solution here. However, it's not 20% less. It's 20 times less. It's 20 times less. And this is something we need to consider. We cannot always circumvent this issue and this question. And politicians, you described
I said nothing about politicians. I respect politicians.
Okay, we respect politicians, but they believe to what industry sometimes tells them. And at the moment, there is a naivety to just discard this big thing of the critical raw materials.
No,
and we need to stop it.
Actually, one second.
Laurent, let me jump in. Then
I'll jump in because in 2011, after Fukushima, I worked for a European or US investment bank, and I was the head of their equity research area. And they asked me to go to the European Commission and talk about the impacts of Fukushima. And I said, they asked me what I should do, and I said, directly electrify as much as you can in the system. They didn't listen to me. What they did was they listened to the German automobile industry, who was, the head of which was beside me on the panel. And why did they listen to him? Because what they said at the time was, the future is hydrogen, the future is fuel cells. And I said, that's very interesting. So now here we are, 11 years later. There's no German manufacturer, European manufacturer that has a commercial fuel cell car in the world. Meanwhile, what's actually happened from a competitive point of view is that the number one automobile manufacturer in the world in terms of market cap is Tesla. Number 3 is BYD. Yeah. If I look at the biggest battery manufacturer in the world, it's CATL. And the value creation across the world and destruction in Europe because of that decision gets me a little bit concerned, to be honest. So that's where
Can I remind you just a second? Can I remind you just a second? Just a second. You didn't start, so how can you finish? Can I remind you about the first thing I said? I came into Hydrogen Europe. I said fingers off hydrogen cars, passenger cars. So you don't need to convince me, but you need to convince me, explaining to me how you explain the case of a truck running 100 kilometers heavy duty on 1 ton of battery and 500 on 5 tons. Stop. This we need to stop.
Okay.
So it's a good division of work that passenger cars are battery oriented. I have no problem. And in the truck sector, we have a diversity, but we talk about long distance. And there, of course, hydrogen as a fuel, yes, as a fuel is an issue.
Let's talk about the fuel, because your report and Mr. Timmermans were saying by the end of the decade, and I quote, hydrogen will be at 1.5 or 2 euro per kilo. And I'm saying you are magicians, because, no, literally you're magicians, because because I'm a trader, so I trade, okay? So when I take the price this morning of the calendar 23 EEX, it's 226 euro per megawatt hour. It's the price. If you think it's too low, sell it. If you think it's too high, buy it. What I'm saying is, you divide by 20, that's your fuel cost per kilo. It means it's 10 euro per kilo. If you manage, that's the fuel cost. If today you manage to produce below 10 euro per kilo, you can have your hydrogen Ferrari outside because you're going to be a billionaire. Yeah. So what I'm saying, you're talking fuel, we talk fuel. It's just too expensive to be used as a fuel.
I'm not sure. Even the 10 euro per kilo give you 100 kilometers. I'm not sure whether this is a bad ratio today. And of course, we talk about end of the decade. So don't
okay,
so is it serious to take a snapshot of today and to say you're far away?
Okay, fine. Give me the price of oil in 2030. Okay, maybe it's 50
I don't know,
rubles
but
or
I can give you the name.
You can give me the price of a fuel that needs to be done by a fuel, but you cannot know the price of the fuel today, nor tomorrow.
I can give you the names of some projects of big scale, of course not in Europe, outside Europe, where we can already predict how fast the price goes down. And I don't understand this aggressive tone.
No, I'm Irish. We're very aggressive. Sorry.
I don't understand this because in the end, we are partners in decarbonization, right? The electricity world and the hydrogen world. It's like this. It's not like this. And I never understood this aggressive tone, and that is why I'm saying it is cheaper to invest into two infrastructures for charging, and I can give you the new study, which is about to be published next week.
Another study, I'm sure it's positive.
This is not serious.
No,
We just, I mean, you come up with a very unserious snapshot of today, and you tell me another study. I'm sorry.
You are the one shouting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is...
Okay, I tell you, because you don't like the reality I'm telling you, so you're telling me I'm aggressive. I'm just reading you a screen. And I say, what's your reaction? And the reaction is, I don't like what you see on the screen, and the screen are irrelevant. Okay, that's fine.
No,
you know, I'm not a politician, so I'm a trader, so I see what's real.
I calm down. Very calm.
Serenity now.
I calm down. And I tell you, have a look at this wonderful 80-20 ratio. It's wonderful. 80% in life we can always do easily. The last 20% are always the most costful. We know it from many. We found out that it is the same thing in the infrastructure for recharging and refueling. Here you have, even by 10% refueling in comparison with 90% recharging, a very beneficial effect. And that's what we want to say. It's not that somebody wants to take a big part of the cake. No, it's just we have scarce elements. We have scarce also pockets. So if you put it together and the price goes down, what's wrong with it? That's the only thing we say. And that's what this study, and I don't send it to you because say is another study, but people will talk about that, and definitely policymakers will talk about that, because they need to find the money and they need to reduce costs, and they like it. They like to reduce costs and have efficiency at the same time.
Can I switch topics a little bit? Because let's move on from transport. What we're all in agreement with is we have to decarbonize current hydrogen production, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your views on how you think the best way to do that is.
I think the best way is, first of all, to have level playing field in targets, and that's what REPowerEU does. I think it's a wonderful idea to urge basically the industry using hydrogen, to decarbonize by 75%. So that's excellent, because it's bulk of hydrogen. We can argue about fuel. We can argue, but that's another target that has been set, has been discussed, and is there. Especially these sub-targets, and here I'm critical about REPowerEU. So the fuel target is high. The sub-targets in aviation and in maritime have not been adapted. So we need to adapt them in order to give clear incentives to fuel makers, e-kerosene, or SAF, synthetic aircraft fuels, air fuels, and the maritime sector to adapt. There you will develop, big decarbonization impact in both sides, and it's the hard-to-abate sectors. It's what is accepted in general.
And what do you think of this additionality clause? And where I'm coming from that is, if you wanted to really produce low-cost, clean hydrogen today, you're going to do it up in the Nordics, because they've got a whole pile of hydro and they've got a whole pile of nuclear. But this additionality clause, it doesn't I understand why they're doing it, but I think it's very theoretical. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think.
I think additionality is important. We cannot, and I said our mission is to propel global decarbonization. You need more renewables, so we need additional renewables. The whole concept of additionality stems from, it's not fake, but these statistical transfers that you live in Germany, so you know very well, that reach 46% of decarbonized electricity or renewable electricity, but not additional infrastructure. So I fully agree. We need to make sure that there is an additional renewable infrastructure. It wouldn't work otherwise. And we should do it, and we are fully in favor. The question is, we are talking here, and I said Europe is our hub. We are Hydrogen Europe. We have an interest in scaling up the European industry on hydrogen technologies, and to not give them the same incentives as our friends in Australia, our friends in US, let alone China have, would be unfair. We would see a similar effect how we saw it in photovoltaic industry. So what we just say is, EU Commission defined 2030 as the market entry, the start of the market. That is the timeline where, so to say, the complex regulation really should start. And we are pleading for a grandfathering idea. So whoever invests soon should be able to invest, so you have investments into hydrogen technologies, and as of 30, regulated as complex as the regulator deems it needed.
Okay, so this is green hydrogen.
This is renewably produced hydrogen. We have a little bit of problem with these colors.
Okay, so let's talk. Okay, you're the hydrogen expert here. When I open an electrolyzer, what do I see?
You see a stack of stainless steel metal plates, and in between you have membranes with, in most cases, you then see membranes with platinum.
That's it. Up. Steel, membrane.
Steel, membrane, screws.
Screws. Valves, pumps.
Yes, of course, but that's not when you open. Yeah, you see some valves and pumps, but the main thing you see is that stack. We call it stack.
Okay, good.
So it's a lot of steel. We need a lot of steel. And this steel, by the way, it's a good idea, should have a quota. It should be green. There are first projects like the hybrid project in Sweden that kicked off very early because of the Nordic dimension that you mentioned. But also Salzgitter AG is is a follower now and will be ready in 33. I think hybrid Sweden is ready in 26 already to produce 100% green to keep the color steel. And that's fantastic.
Can I ask you, because I come from the technology world, right? And I'm all about sort of getting costs down. So you talked about the solar industry. And if I look back to the first solar company I met, I didn't believe in it at all. But the reason I didn't believe in it was because I saw the way they were producing. It was really amateurish. But the founder of that business said, it's a semiconductor. We're going to push the cost down. Now, that was like nearly 20 years ago. And I used to cover the whole fuel cell sector and hydrogen sector as an analyst. And I look at the innovation in the sector and I say, I don't see any. I haven't seen any over this period of time. We've got the same technologies there. And I suppose when I look going forward at solar batteries, I see, again, massive technology because I see just incredible competition. But I don't see this in this area. And it gives me a concern. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Very simple, because there was not enough request. I mean, we see this innovation in the solar industry because of a high demand. And this was the missing link. And this demand has now been defined by let's say, Repower EU and other elements like Fit for 55. And now we see it. We had a meeting, I think 3 weeks after the first draft of Repower EU was published. We had a meeting with the 20 CEOs on electrolyzer companies in Europe. It's bigger and smaller companies. And you are absolutely right. There are not enough standards that we need to pursue, and this happens right now. So we will create, similarly to the battery alliance, we will have an electrolyzer pact that will be launched in September. Tomorrow, the Commission, during the Hydrogen Forum, both Commissioners, Breton and Timmermans, will already allude to certain elements. And yes, indeed, we need to push our technology into that direction.
Yeah, but okay, but you're tech guys, I'm a fuel guys, and I guess you figure it out already. So, okay, that's very nice. So I count, okay, so I'm not going to talk about your plan. I'm going to talk about the 10 million ton today we produce out of gas, emits 900 million ton of CO2 today, okay? So you want to switch that 100% to green? So now let me finish my question, okay? So 10 million ton divided by 20, that's 500 terawatt hour, okay? It's just the math, you know, it's not me inventing, it's just the math. So 500 terawatt hour. Now, to commissioner means nothing, it's just a chart on a bar. So as I'm French, I always put that in nuclear plants, so, you know, kind of set my head. At its peak in 2010, before the current debacle, the top production of EDF in nuclear was 420 terawatt hour with 58 nuclear plants. So what you're proposing, or what is proposed, just greening the current one. So I'm not talking about trucks, I'm not talking about heating, I'm not even talking about steel, which everybody acknowledges is useful. I'm talking about putting 70 new nuclear plants in 10 years And in order to get your chip, probably producing at 1/4 of the current cost. So I have problem, connecting all of this. Will we have enough power to green, to excess power to green? Because if you want to do that in offshore wind farm, I can do the math, it's probably double. Right now, how many, we have how many? We have, 10 gigawatts of offshore wind farm? Yeah. You need to go to what? To 100? Just for the hydrogen needs. So, and again, these are current use, so we need them. So it means it looks like in 10 years, it's a lot.
It is a lot
of power.
It is a lot, and the interesting thing is, I became active also in politics because of Chernobyl and because of the desert tech. You remember this? Desert tech?
That was a beauty.
It was an interesting, so I became active. I wanted to get out of nuclear as a young student, and desert tech was, let's get out of nuclear, create hydrogen from solar. That was the slogan back then. But desert tech started with electricity and didn't work out because we could not transport the green electrons. There were also political issues, but the green electrons. There is now desert tech 2. It's called DII, Desert Energy. And basically, if you would see the plans and also the first projects that have been kicked off, it's amazing. Because we can overcome the issue of the non-transportability over such a long distance with a molecule, and that's what we do. So basically, what you cannot imagine right now, and I humbly accept, will happen mainly in geographies that do prepare now heavily for this hydrogen production. And it's not just the MENA region. The MENA region is very, very interesting, but it's countries like Namibia with government experts and also people on the field doing it. And by the way, it's also the Green Vice Chancellor of Germany, Mr. Habeck, who's signing every week another bilateral with a country on this production. The Germans have come up with a scheme which is called H2 Global. It's 1 billion only, but it's a model whereby you have tendering. You tender the volume of hydrogen that you want to purchase in a certain time frame, and a carbon contracts for difference scheme. So it's both elements that help to predict volume and price. And the European Commission adopted a similar idea. It's called EU Global Hydrogen Facility with Repower EU. It will be endowed definitely with more money, and we are building up the scheme right now.
Okay, Jorgo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
1 billion for hydrogen and 12 billion to bail out LEAG. They got it like this. And hydrogen, you need to fight, but that's good. That's the good fight. Thank you very much for participating. It was a bit heated, but that's the idea, and we like each other, don't we?
It's nice meeting you.
Yeah, we like each other. It's good to argue, huh? It's good to...
Yeah.